started. All right, today I am going to talk to you about window or windowing functions. The nomenclature is, it's probably window functions, but I am going to call them windowing functions. A little bit about me. I am Caitlin Stewart. You can find me on Twitter here. I am a full stack developer. As far as SQL goes, I work primarily, well, only in T-SQL. So let's start off. What is a window function? These were introduced in SQL Server in 2012, although according to Microsoft documentation, some functionality may work in 2008, but I don't have an instance to test it. Just 2012. Here's a link to the official Microsoft documentation on them. And so the biggest reason to use this is often you'll see column, whatever your column is invalid in the select list, blah, 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 because it's not contained in an aggregate in the group by clause. Because sometimes you want to get a count of something without having to run a separate query and run a group by and all that stuff. Window functions actually allow you to use those aggregate functions without a group by clause. Now, previously, before this came out in 2012, you could use a temp table or a table variable and run your query and get that, and then join that into your real query to get your data. And so I'm going to have just kind of a brief sample here. Control E, connect. We need to use the correct database here. Go for it. To go up here to change the database. To uncomment is Control K, Control U. And I'm going to go ahead and run this query with Control E, which is one of the new ones. On a Mac, when a virtual machine, the F keys don't work, so instead of doing F5, you can do Control E to execute that. And as you can see, I'm trying to get the average tax rate for these sales invoice lines for whatever reason. But whenever you do that, you get this error. And I want these things, I want them all together. I don't want to write a whole bunch of different queries. And before 2012, you just use a temp table or a table variable, and it's just kind of a necessary evil. No, now you can get aggregate functions in your query without having to use that group by clause. So what this looks like is it's called a window function or a select over clause. And I have right here, you can see I have a query, and you can sort of see the results down there. And you can see that we have an aggregate in our query without a group by. And so let's kind of break this down and look at this a bit closer. So here are the different parts of the window function. You have, of course, your aggregate function. You can use average, count, sum, whatever you need at the time. Then you have the word over, and then in parentheses, partition by, and then the column. And this is kind of the column you want to group by. And it's also a nameless column, so if you just do the query, you need to alias it to give it a name so you can actually use that. So let's hop back over here. We'll do Control K, Control C to comment that out. And we'll go down here. So I have this query set up right here. As you can see, we have other columns here from the table, and we have our aggregate function right here, over partition by, and I want this partitioned or grouped by the stock item ID. And I've aliased it so that when we return this, it actually has a name for the column. So that is not Control E, that is the Mac Control E. There's the Windows one. And you can not really see very well. But in the results, that 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth column, we have the average of the line profit, which is partitioned by stock item ID. So if you go down here, you can see stock item ID, 1, it's all the same. And when you get into a different number, the average is going to change. And so you can run that, and you can group that by different things. Now, this is an excellent slide. One of the things to note with these window functions is that you can use that with multiple tables in your query. So in my example, I just had one table. This will still work if you join in other tables. And you can also partition it by multiple columns. So in our example, we just had it partitioned by one column. If you wanted this partitioned by 2 columns for whatever the business reason, you can put the first column, comma, then the second column. And you can also use some other things. You can do an order in that partition by. You can do an order by, and other query things as well. Now, I do want to note that window functions, they seem great, that's awesome, but they can impact your query performance. So that's definitely something that you want to think about when you're using them. So this is just kind of a brief, kind of high-level overview of something, window functions. Now, if you have any questions, here are some links for further reading, some things that I use to write this, as well as the Microsoft Docs. So that'll give you some more information, and you can get more detailed scenarios. Do you have any questions for me at the moment? Yes, what's your question? How does SQL? Okay, well, how does SQL? SQL is a database, and SQL is the language you use to talk to the database to get your information. So you can use a window function, and it will get special data that you were unable to get before. Anyone else?
Great question.
Thank you.